everybody, my name is Connor. I'm an English teacher and a state exam corrector. In today's video we'll be looking at a sample answer which focuses on the poet Elizabeth Bishop. So as you can see, the sample answer is in response to a question that came up in the 2017 higher level paper. I recommend that you read the sample answer before watching the video. I think that this will allow you to get a flavour of the student's work and will also give you an insight into the angle their essay will take. Once you've watched the video, be sure to look at the annotated version of the sample answer, where you'll find even more info and tips that won't be discussed in this video. Okay, so before we get into the sample answer, let's take a quick look at the question and a brief look at the marking scheme. The question reads, from the poetry of Elizabeth Bishop that you have studied, select the poems that, in your opinion, best demonstrate her skillful use of language and imagery to confront life's harsh realities. Okay, so the first thing to recognise here is the fact that this question has two parts. The first part is the to demonstrate her skillful use of language and imagery, and the second part is the to confront life's harsh realities. The first part of the question basically wants you to discuss Bishop's poetic techniques and the various images that are evident in her poetry. The second part wants you to discuss how these language techniques and images help Bishop to confront some of life's harsh realities in her poems. With that in mind, a good tip when approaching a prescribed poetry question, I find, is to always remember that you're ultimately being assessed on your knowledge of the poet's language and themes, and this question is no different. Now that we've had a quick look at the question, let's take a brief look at the marking scheme. As a corrector, I've always found that students who are in some way conscious of the marking scheme, and even more importantly the marking scheme codes, often tend to score most highly in an exam situation. The codes, as you can see for this particular question, are L, I and R. The L stands for Bishop's language, so that's her poetic techniques. The I stands for Bishop's imagery, and the R stands for whenever Bishop confronts life's harsh realities in her poetry. If you can discuss these aspects of Bishop's poetry in light of the question, then the corrector will award you with these codes. I'm sure that you all know it's no secret that the more of these codes allocated to your essay, the higher your mark will be. So now that we've dissected the question and considered the marking scheme, let's get straight into the sample answer. But before we take a look at the student's intro and a few of their main body paragraphs, I just want to quickly show you how I form my initial impression of a student's poetry response. The first thing I always consider is the structure of the response. For me, a prescribed poetry essay should have an intro, 5 to 6 main body paragraphs and a conclusion. You would be so surprised at how many students fail to follow this simple structure and therefore tend to present a disjointed and messy essay in an exam situation. The second thing I consider is whether or not the student actually addresses the question in their essay. A tip for you to stay focused on the question at hand throughout your own essay is to continuously reinforce the question's key words. The next thing I consider is the student's knowledge of poetic techniques. You've all been learning about the poetic techniques since first year. They are the nuts and bolts of poetry, and this is your chance really to show the corrector that you have a good knowledge of the fundamentals in poetry. The last thing, I guess, that forms my initial impression is personal response. As a corrector, I absolutely love reading students' unique and insightful responses to the poems that they've studied. For me, any evidence of personal response is more often than not a strong indicator that an essay has been well thought out and that the student has the ability to actually form an opinion on the poem rather than an ability to simply regurgitate notes that they received in class. Now that you know how I form my initial impressions of a student's poetry essay, let's take a quick look at the sample answer's introduction. What I really liked about this student's introduction is the fact that they reinforce the question's keywords right away. Phrases such as language and vivid imagery and phrases such as confront life's harsh realities shows me that the student has actually processed what is being asked in the question. I was also very impressed with this student's range of vocab too. Words such as authentically and monotony show me that this student has a superior command of the English language. I also really liked how this student provided a quick overview of the angle in which their essay will take in light of the question. One piece of advice I would give to this student would be to avoid providing a shopping list of poems that they'd be referring to in their answer. Save time and just add 2 or 3 poems in your introduction. I also think that there is possibly too much going on in this intro. I would advise that this intro be kept a bit more simple and direct. Now that we've looked at the intro, let's take a look at this student's main body paragraphs. First paragraph we look at is the paragraph that refers to Bishop's poem Sestina. Again, I was very impressed with how this student reinforces the question's keywords and phrases throughout their main body paragraphs. I was also very impressed with the student's knowledge of Bishop's poetic techniques, which you can see highlighted here in green. Just a quick bit of advice, there's no need to refer to 4 techniques in one main body paragraph like this student has done. Referring to 1 or 2 is perfectly acceptable as well. I also really liked how this student used integrated quotes. Highlighted here in blue, the integrated quotes I think read so much better than a statement followed up by a standalone quote. Something that I think would have improved this essay would be having more personal response. The student just started to give some personal response at the end of their paragraph, highlighted in red here, but failed to provide any further development. An extra sentence or two here elaborating on why they found Bishop's use of repetition powerful and poignant would have been very impressive. I also think that this student has provided probably an unrealistic amount of quotes. It's perfectly acceptable to provide 1 or even 2 quotes per main body paragraph to support your paragraph's point. The next paragraph we're going to take a look at is the paragraph that focuses on the poem At the Fish Houses. I was very impressed with the snippet of personal response that the student shows here, highlighted in green. I do think though that another sentence or two elaborating on this response would have made the paragraph even more impressive. Again, this student displays a wide range of vocab, which is sure to strengthen their language mark in the context of the PCLM marking template. One piece of advice I would give to the student in relation to this paragraph would be to keep things more straightforward. I feel as though this paragraph is quite disjointed due to the fact that the student has squeezed so much information into one main body paragraph. A good tip is to refer to one main point per main body paragraph. Now that we've looked at some of the sample answer, let's take a quick look at some of the overall take-home points. The sample answer was overall very impressive. What worked well was the fact that the student addressed the question throughout the essay. The student's knowledge of Bishop's poetic techniques was also very impressive. Their wide range of vocab accompanied with their nice turn of phrase showed me, a corrector, that they had a superior grasp of the English language. Some advice I would give to this student would be to include more personal response in their essay and to remember to keep their main body paragraphs more direct and concise. Hopefully some of the information shared in this video has helped you in some way. Make sure you download the annotated version of this sample answer where you'll find even more information that wasn't discussed in this video. Thanks for watching and chat again soon.